For years, Venezuela has been described as a failed state, a country crippled by sanctions, corruption, and cartel influence. But behind the headlines is a deeper geopolitical reality. While the United States focuses on sanctions and Latin America struggles with narco-states, another global power has been quietly locking in leverage. That power is China. Today, we are breaking down China's relationship with Venezuela, why oil is the center of that relationship, and how this alliance reshapes drug trafficking routes, cartel protection, and global power balances. This is not about ideology. This is about energy, debt, leverage, and survival. Welcome to Breaking Down the Cartels. Venezuela matters because it sits on the largest proven oil reserves on Earth. Larger than Saudi Arabia, larger than Russia, larger than Iran. Yet Venezuela cannot fully exploit this oil on its own. Decades of mismanagement, corruption, and sanctions have left its oil infrastructure in disrepair. Production collapsed. Refineries aged. Cash flow dried up. That created an opening. For a nation that desperately needs energy security, Venezuela is not a liability. It is a long-term asset. That nation is China. China is the world's largest energy consumer, and it imports more than 70% of its oil. Much of that oil flows through strategic choke points. The Strait of Hormuz, the Malacca Strait, and sea lanes monitored or controlled by US allies. From Beijing's perspective, this is a vulnerability. If conflict erupts with the United States or its partners, oil supply lines can be disrupted overnight. So China's strategy is simple. Diversify suppliers, lock in long-term contracts, and gain influence upstream wherever possible. Venezuela offers something rare - massive reserves, political isolation from the West, and a government willing to trade oil for survival. China did not arrive in Venezuela with soldiers or warships. It arrived with loans. Over the last 2 decades, China lent Venezuela tens of billions of dollars through state-owned banks and enterprises. These loans were not repaid in cash. They were repaid in oil, guaranteed shipments, discounted prices, priority access, even during sanctions. For Venezuela, the arrangement meant immediate cash, political backing, and a lifeline when Western capital disappeared. For China, it meant leverage. This was not charity. It was strategy. US sanctions attempted to isolate Venezuela's oil exports. But oil does not disappear. It adapts. Ship-to-ship transfers increased. Oil tankers switched flags. Tracking transponders were turned off. Crude was rebranded and shipped under false origins. Oil labeled as Malaysian or Asian blends often traced back to Venezuela. These are the same techniques used by drug traffickers, arms smugglers, and sanction-busting states. And here's the key connection. The networks that move illicit oil often overlap with the same corridors used by cartels. Venezuela is not just an oil state. It is a major transit hub for cocaine moving from Colombia to Europe and West Africa. Senior figures inside the Venezuelan regime, often referred to as the cartel of the suns, have been accused of facilitating this trade. China does not need to manage cartels directly. It only needs stability at the top, continuity of contracts, and predictable oil flows. As long as shipments continue, internal corruption becomes secondary. This creates a dangerous equilibrium. Cartels benefit from state protection. The regime benefits from cartel revenue. China benefits from oil access. And sanctions lose effectiveness. The United States and China play by different rulebooks. The US conditions engagement on human rights, elections, and anti-corruption reforms. China does not. China's approach is transactional. You deliver oil. China delivers money, infrastructure, and diplomatic cover. No lectures, no reforms, no elections required. To Beijing, Venezuela is not a failed state. It is an underpriced asset. China's involvement does not stop at oil. It extends into surveillance systems, telecommunications, digital identification programs, and satellite cooperation. These technologies strengthen regime control internally. A government that can monitor dissent is harder to overthrow. For China, this means contract stability and regime longevity. For cartels, it means predictable corridors and reduced interference. The global drug trade does not exist in isolation. It thrives in weak states, sanctioned economies, and shadow financial systems. China's oil relationship with Venezuela indirectly reinforces all three. This does not mean China runs cartels. It means strategic tolerance allows cartel ecosystems to persist. As long as oil flows, instability becomes manageable. China is not betting on Venezuela today. It is betting on Venezuela 20 years from now. When sanctions fade, when oil prices rise, when the world scrambles for energy again. By then, China will already be embedded. The infrastructure will already exist, the debt will already be owed, and the cartels will adapt, as they always do, operating in the shadows of geopolitics. Because the modern drug war is not just about drugs, it is about oil, power, and who controls the future. This is Breaking Down the Cartels. Please click like and subscribe. To understand the modern fentanyl crisis, we need to stop thinking in terms of street dealers and start thinking in terms of supply chains. Fentanyl is not grown in fields. It is engineered. At the very beginning of that supply chain are chemical precursors. And for years, the world's largest producer of those precursors was China. In the early 2000s, China became the dominant global supplier of industrial chemicals. Many of these chemicals had legitimate uses: pharmaceuticals, plastics, manufacturing. But some of them had another purpose. They were perfect for synthesizing fentanyl. At first, finished fentanyl was shipped directly from China to the United States through the mail. When law enforcement cracked down on that model, the system adapted. China did not stop producing precursors. Instead, production moved one step back in the chain. Rather than shipping finished fentanyl, Chinese chemical suppliers began exporting precursor compounds to Mexico. These shipments were often mislabeled, sometimes split into smaller quantities, sometimes routed through third countries. Once the chemicals reached Mexico, the final synthesis happened locally. The result was simple. Mexican cartels became manufacturers, and fentanyl production exploded. This is where geopolitics quietly intersects with organized crime. China officially banned fentanyl-class substances in 2019. But banning finished drugs is not the same as controlling precursor chemicals. Many of the compounds used to make fentanyl remain legal, loosely regulated, or difficult to track. Enforcement varies by province. Oversight is inconsistent. And chemical exports are massive. This creates plausible deniability. China can claim compliance while the chemicals keep flowing. Now let's bring Venezuela back into the picture. Venezuela does not produce fentanyl at scale, but it plays a strategic role in the broader ecosystem. It offers safe transit routes, weak oversight, corruptible officials, and deep connections to cartel logistics networks. As cocaine routes diversify, fentanyl routes follow. Airstrips, ports, and shipping corridors originally built for drugs are now used for chemicals, cash, and laundering operations. Here is the uncomfortable reality. Fentanyl is not just a criminal problem. It is a geopolitical weapon. Not because governments are intentionally poisoning populations, but because the incentives align in dangerous ways. For China, fentanyl destabilizes rival societies without firing a shot. For cartels, it is cheap to make and massively profitable. For sanctioned states like Venezuela, it integrates seamlessly into existing black market economies. Everyone benefits, except the public. The numbers tell the story. Fentanyl is now the leading cause of death for Americans aged 18 to 45. It has hollowed out entire communities, but enforcement efforts remain fragmented. The drug war still focuses on seizures at the street level, while the upstream supply chain remains intact. Here's the deeper issue. Chemical supply chains operate in a gray zone between legality and illegality. A single molecule change can turn a banned substance into a legal one. Regulators are always chasing yesterday's formula. Manufacturers stay one step ahead. This is not accidental, it is structural. China's role is not one of direct cartel management. It is one of tolerance. As long as exports remain technically legal, enforcement remains selective. And as long as fentanyl weakens rival societies, pressure to fully shut the system down remains limited. This is asymmetric warfare without uniforms. The United States faces a dilemma. Aggressive action risks trade retaliation. Diplomacy risks delay. Sanctions risk further pushing supply chains underground. Meanwhile, overdose deaths continue to rise. The fentanyl crisis is not just a failure of law enforcement. It is a failure of global coordination. Cartels understand this better than anyone. They do not need protection from governments. They only need gaps. Gaps between regulations. Gaps between jurisdictions. Gaps between political priorities. And those gaps are everywhere. When you combine China's chemical industry, Mexico's manufacturing networks, and Venezuela's corruption and transit corridors, you get something far more resilient than any single cartel. You get a system that adapts faster than laws can change. Pause. This is why the drug war feels unwinnable. Because it is not being fought at the correct level. The battlefield is not street corners. It is ports, chemical registries, trade agreements, and geopolitical leverage. Until fentanyl precursors are treated as a national security issue, rather than just a criminal one, the crisis will continue. And as long as energy, sanctions, and global power politics dominate international relations, drugs will remain a secondary concern. Collateral damage. Fentanyl is not just a drug. It is a symptom of globalization without accountability, of enforcement without coordination, of power without consequence. And until those realities change, the supply chain will keep moving, quietly, efficiently, and fatally. This is breaking down the cartels.